Okay, let's see what we're working with. Good evening. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Beauty in Us Radio right here on Awesome God Radio. I'm your host, Nelson E. Brown, and I want to thank you all for joining me for another edition of the Beauty in Us Radio right here on Awesome God Radio. Make sure that you subscribe to Awesome God Radio and on all of the social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, you name it, YouTube, you name it. We are everywhere. So I thank you guys for tuning in to another edition of the show. I have a great guest this evening, Mr. Hayk Tadevosyan. I'm going to pronounce this correctly before I move forward. Tadevosyan. Mr. Hayk is going to be joining us later on in the show to talk about his career in entrepreneurship. Excuse me while I take these off. Please excuse me, you all. The glare on my glasses is bothering me, so I'm just going to talk like this. We're going to have a conversation about entrepreneurship tonight, and we're going to have a conversation about what it means to build a business and to build a legacy. Mr. Hayk this evening he's a jack of all trades. I met him a few weeks ago through one of my previous guests from my broadcast, Miss Mari Mitchell. So a big shout out to Miss Mari Mitchell for making this connection happen. So I want to let you all know that I want to thank you all for, again, your continued support for the Beauty in Us Radio right here on Awesome God Radio. I couldn't have done this without you guys. You guys support each and every broadcast, each and every show. We have 2 more shows left for 2021 before we begin 2022. So I've already booked some people for 2022. I've already booked for some people for 2022. So I have the first few shows booked for January. So if you know someone, or if you yourself have something of substance to bring to the Beauty in Us Radio, if you've written a book, if you've created a foundation that's inspirational, if you're making a difference in your community, if you're an activist, if you're a public servant of some sort, if you have something that is uplifting and that can help us bring about a change in our community, please feel free to reach out to me and let me know. I mean, all of us have gifts, all of us have talents, and all of us have the ability to make the world a better place. When we use our gifts to help others, we have to remember about how it's going to affect people in a positive note. Oftentimes when people use their gifts, and they don't have to necessarily be spiritual gifts, but I'm just speaking in general, from a broad perspective. When we use our gifts, it's not just about fulfilling our own needs or our own purpose or our own desires. It's about making an impact for the better. It's about making a difference for the people in the communities that we serve. It's about making a difference amongst the communities in which we live in, we work in, and that we raise our families in. And I think that when we talk about faith, when we talk about what it means to be successful, when we talk about what it means to be business-minded, what it means to sacrifice, grind, and work hard in order to build that legacy, we have to remember what entrepreneurship looks like. Now, I know a lot of people personally who jump into the field of entrepreneurship with the goal of making money. Now, again, everybody wants to make money. Everybody wants a little extra money in their pocket every now and then. They want some extra change to come when they feel a little short, so to speak. But a lot of people who want to become entrepreneurs and who want to become their own bosses, I find that they don't have a lot of tools and resources in order to be successful in the long run. So that's why Mr. Hayk is going to join us for the second half of the show to talk about the work that he does in entrepreneurship and how he's been able to build a successful career in entrepreneurship as the jack of many trades. So I'm going to talk about entrepreneurship, and I'm going to talk about a lot of the myths that take place when people, the myths that exist when people think about entrepreneurship and when people think about starting a business. So first things first, we have to establish that entrepreneurship is the process. According to sources, it says that entrepreneurship is the process by which one starts and runs a business. It says that studying the resources here can hopefully help you to become a successful entrepreneur. So it has a list. I have a list of resources that I'm going to share with you guys about what it means to be an entrepreneur and what it means to be your own boss and have your own business and be successful in the long run. But I want to talk about the myths first and the definition of what it means to be an entrepreneur before we dive into that too deep. So entrepreneurs are those who look for a problem area and offer a solution for that problem. So someone who markets the brand, big business companies who use marketing agents when doing their advertising, salesmen will add up to the successful business, the person who sells products from door to door in that process. These are examples of entrepreneurs in our communities. So many of the discussion questions that I formulated when I thought about this topic, and I've spoken about this before, I've talked about what it means to be a business owner before. So if you have a chance, whenever you have a chance, you're free to look at all of my other broadcasts, look back to see who I've spoken with about this so that you can learn more about this yourself. But when we talk about entrepreneurship, I've talked about it on the show before, but as we revisit this conversation, I want to talk about the fact that all of us know entrepreneurs. We either work with them, we either live in the same household with them, we have family members who are entrepreneurs, we have friends who move and groove and shake and bake and do a whole bunch of things. They want to be the jack of all trades. They want to juggle between their family life and between making money and being successful at it. And that's great. But I think that it's important for us, again, to understand what business owners are, who business owners are, and the role that entrepreneurship plays in building the economy and in economic development in general. So a lot of people have to explain the role of that. And they have to figure out what the steps are in order to launch a new business. And we have to think about what the qualities and traits of a successful entrepreneur. We have to figure out what they are in order to figure out how to be a successful one. So a lot of people, again, I know a lot of young people, a lot of the millennials, I'll say, people in my age bracket who want to be entrepreneurs and who want to make their own money and be their own bosses. Again, they find something that they're passionate about and they want to make money out of it. And again, people have every right to be as ambitious as they want to be with whatever they pursue. The sky's the limit, as they say. So we are in a position to achieve anything and everything that we want. But the key is how. So we have to figure out how can we make money? How can we be successful in the long run? How can we be in a position to build that legacy and to build that brand, so to speak? A lot of people have a brand that they want to advertise. A lot of people have a brand that they want to build within their communities and throughout the nation. A lot of people have something that they're passionate about. So my question is, before you think about becoming an entrepreneur, or before you even consider investing a career into entrepreneurship, the question that you have to ask yourself is, what am I passionate about? What drives me? What do I think about doing the moment I get up in the morning and the moment I go to sleep at night? How am I going to make the world a better place? How can I use my gifts to help others? How can I work from the inside out in order to build a better life for other people? How can I be a blessing to others by using my gifts? So when we think about becoming entrepreneurs, we have to think about that first and foremost, because you can't establish anything without having a foundation of your own to stand on. The foundation isn't always rainbows and sunshine. Sometimes you have to go through hills and valleys. Sometimes you have to have tests and trials in order to appreciate and embrace what the world of entrepreneurship is. It has its ups, it has its downs, it has its peaks, it has its lows. So we all have to remember that it's not always about making money. It's also about making an impact for the better. We also have to think about how, again, as I stated before, how can entrepreneurship be used to help benefit society while earning a profit? So a lot of people, again, focus on earning the profit, But a lot of people fail to realize that, in order to become an entrepreneur, it's not always about making money and fulfilling your own needs and desires. It's also about thinking about how it's going to benefit your community, the people around you. And you have to also think about what type of business you could start that could earn you a profit and benefit all of the stakeholders that are involved. So as I did my research and as I gathered all of my thoughts and as I prepared for the broadcast tonight, I wanted to think about that more in detail. I wanted everybody to have an opportunity to think about what drives them, what they're passionate about. I wanted everybody to have an opportunity to think about how they can make an impact in their community. Right now, we're in the holiday season, and everybody's in a very, very giving mood. We've already had our turkeys. We've already had our stuffing, our mac and cheese, our sweet potatoes, our collard greens, string beans, you name it. We've already had all of that. So we've already gone through Thanksgiving. So we're past Thanksgiving. A lot of us are still trying to get rid of the leftovers from a few weeks ago. But now we are in the Christmas season, the holiday season, because everybody doesn't celebrate Christmas. So people may celebrate Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, and many different holidays. So right now we're in the giving season. We're in a season where we feel generous. A lot of people feel generous. They want to give. They want to think about the people who are not as fortunate as they are. But we have to remember that just because we are in the holiday season, doesn't mean that we forget about it once the holiday season is over. I mean, just think about it right now. I hear people playing Christmas music. I hear radio personalities playing Christmas music on the radio. I see people decorating their homes. People are putting up their Christmas trees. People are still getting their gifts together. I see all of that, that having that giving spirit, that generous spirit. I see all of that. The sermon in my church this past Sunday was about hope. So I think that when we think about entrepreneurship and when we think about earning a profit and when we think about investing in a business with a foundation to stand on, I think that it's important for us to remember that there are stakeholders involved. There are people throughout the community who can benefit from what you have to offer. It's not always about, again, fulfilling your own needs and desires, because you can accomplish a lot in your life and still not be in a position to make an impact for the better. I know a lot of people who use their gifts to fulfill their own needs and desires, but they never think about how to uplift others. So we have to think about our communities around the world who are going through really, really tough times right now, financially, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, mentally, in all aspects. Oftentimes, one of the things that I like to think about in terms of just being on this journey and celebrating entrepreneurship to the fullest is the fact that entrepreneurship does not fit into one box. It does not fit into one category. We are all in a position to make entrepreneurship the way we want to make it. We are in a position to make it as diverse as possible. We have to think about, again, the qualities and traits of a successful entrepreneur and what type of business we want to establish, not just for ourselves, again, but for the community. Everybody can benefit from what we have to offer. So I can definitely talk about the myths of entrepreneurship now that we've established what entrepreneurship is and what that looks like. I can read from a couple of sources that I've gathered about entrepreneurship and its myths so that everybody can have a better understanding of what they're getting themselves into when they pick up a pen and start jotting down notes, and when they think of creative ways to make money and to establish a foundation of their own. I want people to think about these things before they make those decisions and jump headfirst into them. So this source says that the entrepreneurial world has always been about challenging the status quo and questioning conventional wisdom in search of new and better ways of doing things. That's what gave rise, in one way or another, to every great American company. After all, if you're just going to follow the pack and do what everyone else is doing, you may as well just go out and get a job working for someone else. And it's very easy working for someone else. There is no shame in that. A lot of people who work for other people retire with a lot of incentives. A lot of people receive tons of benefits out of that for their futures and for their families in their years of service, because of their years of service. But it also says that today, however, there is a pervasive and nearly defeating mantra insisting that each and every one of you should quit your job and become an entrepreneur. The social collective says that every day you wait brings you closer to a life of poverty and regret. But that's simply not true. It says that the idea that you can't have a fulfilling career, be remarkably happy, and even get rich working for someone else is perhaps the most ludicrous, disingenuous, and irresponsible myth I've ever heard. Again, this is from the author's point of view. This is an article that I've researched about entrepreneurship's myths. Don't get me wrong, entrepreneurship can be incredibly rewarding. Starting your own business may be the best decision you ever make, but it's not for everyone. There's a lot to consider before you take the plunge, starting with a few myths that are very much in need of exposure. So myth number one about entrepreneurship is that entrepreneurship is the only way to get rich. So according to this author, this is a complete fabrication. So granted, the richest people in America are mostly entrepreneurs or members of entrepreneurial families, and half of America's millionaires are self-employed. But that does not mean that they were always self-employed. Many of them worked for companies before striking out on their own. Then there's the other half of America's millionaires who are not self-employed. Hundreds of companies such as Microsoft, Intel, Google, Apple, and Facebook create hundreds of thousands of millionaires. The truth is, there's no data or logic to support the premise that any given person has a better chance of making more money or by getting rich by being self-employed. And the notion that it's a simple either or proposition is a fallacy. You can do both. So myth number two, it says, follow your passion or cause, not the money. So there's another myth born of oversimplification, according to the author of this article. It says that some people discover what they love to do, making a living at it, and find fulfillment. Others do what they're good at and achieve financial success that frees them to pursue their passion. Still, others pursue a passion or a cause with no market, go broke, and wind up having to do work they don't enjoy to make ends meet. While you'll probably have a better chance of being happy and successful if you enjoy what you do for a living, there are lots of other factors that determine whether you can pull it off. Passion alone won't pay the bills. Passion and money are both important. You shouldn't choose one or the other. So I'm going to park it right there for a second and unpack that a little bit. I think when we talk about entrepreneurship and when we have this discussion, we have to think about these two myths. Both of the myths are that entrepreneurship is the only way to get rich, and the fact that following your passion or a cause instead of the money is false. So oftentimes people make hasty decisions when they want to pursue careers in entrepreneurship. They drop everything, they quit their jobs, and they just dive headfirst into whatever they want to pursue. They may want to flip houses. They may want to start their own internet company. They may want to sell fruit juice. I mean, I don't know. But everybody who jumps headfirst into the field of entrepreneurship does not have the skills or the tools and resources in order to be successful. A lot of people don't understand the ins and outs of running a business. They just look at the end result. They look at the journey from A to Z, and they have a very, very hard time understanding all of the obstacles and bumps in the road that you have to experience and endure in order to get to where you want to be. And from a faith-based standpoint, I always think about the fact that we have to pray about these things before we jump headfirst into them. We have to lean on our faith and not on our flesh in order to make these types of decisions. Because what our faith tells us and what we lean on can determine a lot. So again, when we follow our passion and forget about our responsibilities, that can definitely lead us into a situation where we regret sometimes or even dislike even more. I think that it's important for us to understand that passion alone, like the article stated, is not going to take care of all of the financial responsibilities that come along with pursuing them. But I think that finding what you love in addition to what you do for a living is beneficial to you, and not only to you, but also to your family, the people who count on you, the people who depend upon you to take care of them and love them and embrace them and to help uplift them and support them in their dreams and their desires. So I think that when we talk about the myth of entrepreneurship not being the only way to get rich and following your passion instead of the money, I think that when we talk about these myths, we have to think about the fact that we have our passion, and then we have our responsibilities. So we have to figure out a way to merge those two things together in order to stay afloat financially and to be as happy as we want to be. And it's possible, but we all have to figure out how to get to that point because everyone does not make it to that point. I know a lot of people who are working at and for jobs that they hate so that their children or their children's children can have jobs that they love. I was always taught to pursue my education and to focus on my studies before anything. It's okay to pursue what you're passionate about, but you have to have a strong background in order to stay afloat in the world today. Because of the way the world is going and because of the way we're still evolving as a nation, not just as a community, but as a nation, the way we're evolving, the way the world is going, you cannot just get by with passion. You also have to work hard and pursue your education in order to get to where you want to be, and so that you can be successful at it. Your future depends upon how much work you put in now. So if you work hard now, you can reap the benefits of all of what God is planning to bless you with later. But if you slack off and if you choose not to work hard and you take the easy route instead of the most effective route in order to get to where you want to be, then it's going to be harder for you to figure out how to navigate through all of the obstacles that are going to be in your way later on. So these are the things that we have to think about. But I can definitely continue. Myth number 3 is that entrepreneurship is more fulfilling and will make you happier. Myth number 4 is that entrepreneurs have more freedom, less stress, and no bosses. So when we think about entrepreneurship being more fulfilling and the fact that it will make you happier as a myth, when we think about that as a myth, we have to remember that just about everyone enjoys doing great work that they can be proud of. But the article says that you can do that by working for a big company, a small company, or your own company. But fulfillment has absolutely nothing to do with business ownership. And if you want to manage, lead, or run a business, you're better off learning the ropes in a good company before starting your own. And the question of what makes a person happy is very subjective. According to this passage, it states that most people are actually happier without the headaches, risk, burdens, hurdles, and uncertainty of having their own company. A lot of people worry too much about what the popular crowd says they should be doing. And I think that that's what is making everyone feel guilty and less happy, but it shouldn't. So that's what was written in the article, and that's what the author stated in the passage. And that was myth 3. Now, as we move forward to myth 4, in terms of entrepreneurs having more freedom, less stress, and no bosses. When we think about that as a myth, we have to think about the fact that, you know, all of the entrepreneurs that you know, every single entrepreneur in this world is not stress-free or bossless. This article actually says that if you run your own business, there's a good chance you work 24/7 and wear all sorts of hats you're not necessarily comfortable with. Work often becomes your life, and the financial burden can be enormous. There's nothing wrong with that, but not everyone feels more freedom and control and less stress that way. Many people have the opposite response. So if you think about all of the people who are entrepreneurs, and when you think about all of the people who appear as though they work nonstop, and all of the people who appear as though they never give themselves a chance to exhale and unwind and just enjoy some downtime. Think about how burned out those people feel. Think about how bitter those people could probably feel, not about being entrepreneurs, but not having the chance to enjoy their lives. Oftentimes, I know a lot of entrepreneurs who spend a lot of time away from their relatives. They spend a lot of time away from their families in order to pursue what they're passionate about. And again, that sacrifice, that hard work, and the grind is serious. The hustle is serious. But where's that happy medium? I think a lot of people have a very difficult time trying to figure out what that happy medium is and what it looks like. I can speak from experience. I've learned throughout my years as a young adult, now that I'm 22, versus when I started this young adulting journey at 18, that, working harder and longer doesn't produce better results. It actually made me more of a perfectionist. So my biggest recommendation is to simply don't do that. To give yourself an opportunity to have a break sometimes. All of the hard workers, all of the people who sacrifice, all of the people who do an honest job, a good job, whether it's in your academic career, whether it's in your professional life, regardless of what you're pursuing, everybody deserves to have a break. We as human beings, we have a right to take a break from our professional lives. There are some people that are actually going to spend this entire holiday season worried about work when they're supposed to be vacationing with their families. How many people actually spend their holiday season or the holidays in general, their time off of work, and they focus about what they didn't get accomplished while they were working, and they have an opportunity to have time off, but they still think about all of what they need to do. They still think about all of the assignments that they have at work. They still think about the stress of the job and all of the anxious thoughts that creep up with that. How many people do you know who stress about work even when they're supposed to be off and on vacation? They pray for a day off, they pray for some vacation time, they get it, but they still worry about what they didn't get done. I mean, let's just think about it. A lot of people are like that. And I'm going to be honest, in the past, I was like that. But I've learned throughout the years to give myself a break and to give myself an opportunity to just enjoy my success. I'm a go-getter. I'm someone who's always looking to do the next amazing thing. But we can give ourselves permission to just embrace our accomplishments, celebrate our accomplishments, take some time out to enjoy what we've done and feel good about it. A lot of people have a difficult time putting one foot in front of the other consistently, and a lot of people have a difficult time moving in a direction in order to get something accomplished and feel good about it and maintain that level of confidence with themselves and with their abilities. I hope everybody has an opportunity to understand that and to embrace that with open arms, because again, like I said before, working harder and working longer does not guarantee better results. Now, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Hayk now He's in the meeting room, but I'm waiting for him to hop back on. He's been having some trouble with his audio and with his device, but we're going to push through. So I'm going to wait for him to come back on so that he can give us more information about what entrepreneurship is and what being your own boss is all about. So, Mr. Hayk, thanks again for joining me for this virtual interview on the Beauty and Us Radio right here on Awesome Guide Radio. It's great to have you. And again, shout out to Miss Mari Mitchell for making this connection happen. Mr. Hayk, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your career in entrepreneurship? You know, when we talked a few weeks ago, you told me about the fact that you're the jack of all trades and you pursue many different you do so many different things. So I want to let you talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you. I'm very humbled to be on your show, Nelson. Means a lot. And yes, shout out to Marty. Thank you for that introduction. If Marty's listened to the show, yeah, I guess a little bit about me, Nelson. I moved to the United States pretty much 20 years ago. My father and I came here to pursue the American dream. You know, where I come from in the country of Armenia, the opportunity of becoming somebody is really, really difficult. It's more about connections and, you know, the family you're born in and the people you know. It's less about ethics, hard work, and, you know, doing the things the right way. In, you know, late 90s and early 2000s, the American dream got popular in Armenia. And the dream was move to this country. There's work. You can go and make something of yourself. So I remember we applied for a visa. My father and I got picked. We unfortunately left my mother, my younger brother, my older sister behind for what we thought might be a short separation turned into 7 years of me not seeing them. Those 7 years were the toughest and probably at the same time most rewarding years as far as lessons. You know, fall 9 times, get up 10. You know, there's that saying, you know, some of the best lessons are a black eye, broken heart, and empty pockets. And I lived that for many years. So it taught me a lot of things about opportunity, relationship building. You know, no one cares but work harder kind of a mentality. Here I am 20 years out. You know, I have an amazing team, so I can't really take credit for all of it. My team, I currently own 2 insurance offices. They are one of the top producing teams in the country. One thing that's really helped me that is, you know, I replicate myself. I was very hardworking. I was, you know, positive. I was driven. I was coachable. So I look for people who are similarly like-minded. So we built a great team. You know, they coach me. I coach them. We grow together. We cry together. We fail and we succeed together. And about 3.5 years ago, I decided to take the journey and write about my story and for what I believe the American dream to be, because I believe there's a lot of misconceptions and misunderstanding and false rumors about you just come here and things work out. It doesn't talk about, you know, some obesity rate, obsession rate, you know, addiction rate. It doesn't talk about divorce rate. You know, the American dream doesn't talk about how hard you have to work, how deliberate you have to be, how ethical you have to be, right? So at one point when I believed that I had achieved the American dream, which again, I'm not the wealthiest person I know, I'm not the healthiest, I don't have the biggest family or biggest amount of circle, I believe I had achieved that balance between those 4 pillars, which was family, fitness, finance, and friendship. So as I wrote about it, it was a manuscript, turned into a book. Now it's helping out some youth in our community. Here I am today. I think I would say very much enjoying the American dream, which is still working hard, still maintaining my health. I have a good relationship with my wife. I have 2 boys. Great business. You know, I have a good circle. So in the midst of all the craziness we've experienced the last 20 years by being in this country, I can, you know, call myself in a position of truly now understanding what the American dream meant. And I also understand what the false rumors about it were, because a lot of people do not understand what that actually means.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's such an inspirational story. Like when I read your bio and when I spoke to you a few weeks ago, I was very very touched by your story, because a lot of people who come to, you know, look for opportunities in order to better their lives, you know, everybody unfortunately doesn't make it. Everybody doesn't have the opportunities that many people here are afforded. A lot of people take advantage. They don't take advantage of opportunities, and they take education, job opportunities. They take these things for granted because they're not accustomed to not having them. A lot of people don't know how to function without the things that they have, and they take it for granted, and they don't take full advantage of things. And it's great to hear that, you know, because of your upbringing, you come from humble beginnings. So it's great to know that you're using your story you've used your story in order to write a book and in order to help other people who um, who were in the position that you were in 20 years ago, and who are looking for a change and who want more for themselves and for their lives and for their families that depend upon them to do great things and to be something great. So my next question is, how has your professional life impacted your personal life? Because I know that, I've had several entrepreneurs on my show, and I've spoken to some of them, as I've networked with them and as I've built this platform, and as I've continued to learn from people who are older than me, and even people amongst my group of peers. I know that entrepreneurship is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week journey. It's something that you can't just pick up and put down with the snap of a finger or with the switch of a light. So how have you been able to merge your personal and your professional life? Because I know that, and I talked about it earlier in the show, that you have to have a balance in order to live a healthy life. Because oftentimes people have the mentality of, okay, if I work harder and if I work longer, that can produce better results and more results. And that's not always the case. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I also believe if we stop viewing our professional and our personal life differently and start viewing it as in a whole, it becomes a lot easier to make them work together, because I think it's really hard to have one or without the other. As you can imagine, coming here with this obsession of, hey, I got to work hard, so when I find an opportunity, I'm gonna do everything possible to make it. I very much overworked myself. I had sacrificed my health. I had sacrificed my relationships. I was a single young guy. I was overweight. I was 250 pounds. And one day I said, enough is enough, because that professional approach didn't just, it did make me financially successful, but it made me unsuccessful in so many other ways, right? So there's a saying, the dream is free, but the hustle is going to cost you. That hustle itself was too much, right? There's an acronym I use, and I actually wrote about this acronym in my book. I talk about the CAAR. It's like car with 2 A's. Clarity leads to action, action leads to activity, and activity leads to results. I'm not a genius, but I would say I'm smart enough to learn from others. Einstein once said not to learn anything, you're a dummy. To learn from other people's mistakes, to learn from your mistakes, you're smart. And to learn from other people's mistakes, you're a genius. Unfortunately, I have to make a lot of mistakes myself to learn. So when I was suffocating in work, I very much had no idea that I'd sacrificed the other pillars of my life, which was my health, my relationships. And, I didn't have anybody in my life, no special person to share what I wanted to do with my life. And I've seen a lot of my peers, very successful peers, go through issues in their relationship. We call that divorce, right? They're spending more time working. As a matter of fact, we spend more time working than we even sleep, right? So it takes up so much of my time at work. And then when you leave, the unfortunate side about entrepreneurship and business, you don't just clock off. It's a 24/7, 365. The key is when you do clock off, yes, I understand you take your phone with you, you get emails and phone calls middle of the night and on weekends. How do you make your significant other, for me in my marriage, like how does my wife and my family, how do they not feel like I'm still working? So it took me years of failure. I did have issues. I did have complaints from my wife. Even my kids were like, Dad is on his phone. He doesn't want to listen to us. That clarity piece I talk about is, I think you have to be very clear in understanding that there has to be a downtime that needs 100% attention towards the family, right? So for me, business succeed when you're present, when you're with your customer, you're serving the community, building a good team, you're creating good jobs in the community. So unless you're present, you're not utilizing the opportunity to improve your business, to improve your income, to buy some of your freedom back. Because in all reality, first you work for your money, and then you take your money to buy your time back. And hopefully with that time, you can get your health under control and your relationships. So yes, there's always a sacrifice. There was a point where I took a step back from my business and I said, enough is enough. I'm not working 7 days a week anymore. I'm going to do Saturday appointments, only Sundays, church and family. And Mondays is my family only, where me and my wife and kids, we go shopping, we go to Costco, we take care of errands and that kind of stuff. In all reality, I think everybody who is obsessed with their careers, they need to understand that is going to ruin their marriage unless they become very present to do the same exact things that succeeded in their business, to replicate, to do in their family. And the biggest thing is being present, right? Being at home with your family, but still working on your email, that's still working. And vice versa. When you're at work, you're not getting work done. That's not really working. So the ability to, one thing I had to really teach myself is, there's a saying I heard one time, and I really start thinking about, and I even had a team meeting with my team and asked, the saying goes something like this: to live in fear is to live in the future, to live in regret is to live in the past, to be happy is to be in the moment, right? And happiness is success. That saying revolutionized my business, because when I'm here, I'm working. I try when I'm home to be with my family. Sometimes I get distracted, but I think unless we find that true balance of really like to be with our mind where our feet are. Like if I'm at the office, I'm working. If I'm with my wife, I'm with my wife. If I'm with my kids, I'm with my kids. If I'm at the gym, I'm at the gym. Everything improved in my life versus having my mind be somewhere else. If it's in the moment, you utilize the opportunities that are in front of you to improve whatever you're working on. So those two, even though they're separate, but at the same time, I feel like they're one part of a success equation, because you have to feel successful at home to feel successful at work, and vice versa.
Yes, and I definitely understand exactly what you just laid out on the table, and like I stated before earlier in the broadcast, and I think I probably mentioned it in some of my other shows with some of my other guests. Just because you work harder and you work longer, doesn't produce better results, and a lot of people have that mentality. And I can be honest, I even had that mentality for a long time. Okay, if I work more and harder and longer, that can produce better results, but in a way, you end up feeling bitter about it in the long run when you don't give yourself an opportunity to take a step back from everything and just have some downtime, because something in the process is going to suffer. If even if your career may be going well, your relationships, like you stated, they may suffer. So just if you don't have that healthy balance, something is going to suffer. Something is going to fall apart, and it's going to, in a way, blow up in your face later. When you're in the position where you don't know what to do and you feel overwhelmed and frustrated. I think that it's very, very important to note that, like you just said. My next question is, why are mentors important in the world of entrepreneurship? So a lot of people who want to become entrepreneurs, who work in the field of business, or who want to start a business, a lot of people don't really understand how imperative it is to have mentors and people in your corner who've gone through what you are probably going through, or what you may go through in the future. A lot of people want to just jump into entrepreneurship, and their ultimate goal is just to make money and become wealthy. And there's nothing wrong with that, but the journey is not simply from A to Z.
Right.
So, why are mentors important when you're pursuing a career as an entrepreneur?
It's a good question, Nelson. I'm going back to the acronym. Clarity leads to action, action leads to activity, and activity leads to results. I think the mentors really help with the clarity picture. It's very easy to be ambitious and become successful at the wrong things, or fail so many times until you start believing that you're a failure. And I think that's why it's very important to have a mentor that's years ahead of you, 10 years older, 20 years older, or has been doing what you want to do for many more years. Because I think the important steps of mentorship is not necessarily them teaching you what to do, is to avoid certain things that might get you off track from your personal success. So it's more about steering them away from failure, not necessarily telling you what success is, because I think we all internally will find our success. Sometimes we fail so many times, we fall so many times, we just don't get back up. For me, mentorship has been everything. Mentorship is what steered me to the right business, right? I think, if I didn't know what I was doing, I could have become successful at something that might have had the type of work atmosphere that had poor relationships, which rub off on me, right? Like it or not, you are the sum of the people you surround yourself with the most, right? And if those people had bad, morale, made on a bad attitude, maybe their belief systems were different than mine, I could have ended up being just like them, right? Being successful at the wrong things, which means you're successful here, but you're unsuccessful in 98% of other things. So mentorship has helped me steer the right direction so many times, and I've prevented myself from making so many mistakes. But in all reality, I think we get too afraid of making mistakes. Sometimes we almost have to learn. Like myself, I learned from my own mistakes. But some of those major mistakes that can really set you back 5-10 years. Mentorship is what prevents that. And I think the issue is not that there are no mentors. There are so many mentors out there. Issue with us is a lot of people, including myself at some point, I lack the humility to ask somebody advice on my own life, because I want to pretend like I know everything, right? And that is the case with a lot of entrepreneurs. I can't figure this out on my own. I don't need your help. Pride, right? Pride is a very deadly thing that can really drive people to their own failure. But I think if you admire somebody, you look up to them, you see the results of their life to be something you like to replicate, you should naturally, they're busy, right? So call them, text message them. Most successful people love mentoring, including myself. I have a couple of mentees that I'm coaching right now. I have mentors that are coaching me, and I think it's a circle. So without mentorship, it's really difficult to get to where you want to be.
Yes, and that's important to note for a lot of people, especially a lot of young people who are looking to start a business and own a business. A lot of people are pursuing a career in business, or they want to become entrepreneurs because, again, they think about making money and becoming wealthy. But again, a lot of people, everyone does not have the ability to bounce back from their failures or from their disappointments, and they give up too easily. A lot of people give up easily, and they don't really give themselves an opportunity to, like you said, learn from their mistakes. A lot of people throw in the towel early on instead of taking it, with every stride and learning from the mistakes. Because I mean, even the richest people in the world, make mistakes. A lot of the millionaires and billionaires started out, you know, working for someone, and they developed a plan, and they were able to branch out on their own. Once they developed a plan, once they were in the position to make those mistakes and learn from them. A lot of the world's most successful people are entrepreneurs, but they started out working for someone else, and they made mistakes earlier on. So I think that when you work hard in the beginning, and if you make those mistakes in the beginning, it can be easier for you later on, so you won't run into those same issues. I mean, like, everybody kind of has that dumb moment where it's like, okay, I screwed that up. Okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. I
Exactly.
screwed that up. I screwed that up. Okay, that went way over my head. I don't know what I was thinking, but everybody has those moments. But I think that if people just want to take the easy route, it's not always the most effective
Mm-hmm.
route in order to get to where you want to be. And that's essentially, like what you just said. The easiest route to take is not always the best route when you want to get to where you want to be. Sometimes you have to break down. Sometimes you have to be in tears. Sometimes you have to get frustrated. Sometimes you just have to have your moment. And I think that that's what you just laid
Mm-hmm.
on the table. So I remember you mentioning that, this is piggyback off of one of my questions I've already asked you, but I know that you said you own two insurance companies. So how were you able to build an insurance company? Because the insurance industry is very, very competitive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so how have you been able to do that successfully? Like, when did you say, okay, I just want to start an insurance company? When did
Uh,
that come about?
we have a joke in the insurance business. None of us planned to be here. So, none of us went to school. None of us hoped. None of us thought about it. But it's such a rewarding career, and it has been for me. It's very recession proof. It's great what we're able to do for the community. It's great what I'm able to do for my team. Yeah. So between the two agencies, again, we're not a huge team. I've got about 8 agents that work for me. Um, but where did I start? Did I have a vision of being where I'm at today, the team I have, the office, right? So honestly, no. I had the right mentor in high school. His name is John Jackson, great mentor figure of mine. He was the only person I knew at the time in high school. I had a girlfriend, and her father was very successful. And I never knew what he does. Eventually, of course, I met him. He had a nice house, nice cars, and I'm this broke foreigner kid who just learned how to speak English. That was my greatest achievement at the time, and be able to get a B in school. Um, met John. Great guy, very positive, great mood. Always smiled when he saw me. I'm like, man, I want to be him. Like, I want to be him when I grow up. Like, he has everything I want. As foreigners are coming to this country for this, right? A home, a happy family, and a couple of nice cars. Later, I found out he's working as a corporate level insurance executive, and he told me about how he started off as a sales rep and then opened up his own firm, and then went up climbed up the ladder for corporate success. He just told me, he's like, hey, you're in sales. At the time, I was actually selling cell phones in a mall just as a part-time job because another one of my friends in high school was doing that, and I joined him because I needed to make extra money. We have to, there's no option of not sending money to Armenia to feed my family that was behind, right? So I always worked. I did construction with my dad. We delivered, pizza marketing material on people's mailboxes every evening, all summers, every weekend. So I was a very busy teenager. So when I heard you can sit in a nice, clean office and talk to people, and I was all over it, right? So I went and interviewed a couple of offices, and I worked for 3 years. And honestly, there was no hope of me ever opening up my own agency because the requirements were you have to have lots of money, you have to have a degree. I didn't have any of it. I was a broke young kid in my early 20s. And after about 3 years of working for my boss at the time, I came up to him and I said, hey, what do you think about me opening up my own? He supported me. He, showed me where to apply, who to talk to, and what interview to get. I went from there. I interviewed, went through an internship. I don't know if you ever seen the movie Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith, greatest movie in the world. That
Yeah,
was my
absolutely.
internship for 9 months.
Yeah.
Poorest, hungriest, but the hardest working kid in the entire internship. The one with no money, empty pockets, black eye, you name it, broken heart. But I made it work. I worked very hard. I remember when I got my shot to open up the agency, I was about 22 years old, was the youngest agent in the company. There was a lot of odds against me. I'm sure there were people making bets saying he's not going to make it. Worked very hard. After my first full year, we were the #1 producing agency in our 6 states, which was the greatest achievement of my life. Also, one of the most disappointing experiences I've ever had because I realized money doesn't solve all problems. So from that point, I really started working on myself. I started reading better books. I started spending more time with friends, and I gained lots of weight. So that led to my journey of understanding that discovery of what the American dream really meant. It wasn't about just the grind. It was a combination of things, right? So that's kind of ended up here. And then, I've been reinventing myself as far as what I do for a living. I used to be an insurance salesperson. Then I became a coach for my team, a mentor for my team. I'm at a point where now my main job is to make sure I've got this high producing team and they're firing on all cylinders. So I do a lot of coaching, team meetings, one-on-ones. At this point, I can call myself more of a business owner than a business employee or self-employed, because there's a transition phase you have to go through from self-employed to a business owner. If you don't go in time, most peers that I've met, they become very negative with the business and they tend to fall on their face. And that's something I've been working very hard the last 3 years to become a business owner and a coach versus, handling 200 emails a day and picking up 75 phone calls and dialing 300 numbers a day. That is not the way to be in business. That's buying yourself a job. That's not owning a business. So that's kind of how I ended up in here. And again, mentorship was a huge part of it. And I think there's also a misconception to your previous question, right, about mentorship. Mentorship doesn't have to be person. It's literature. Most of my mentorship has been literature. Reading the right books, listening to the right podcasts and radio shows like this.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, absolutely, 100%. And that's really good. My last two questions before we end the show, and before I let you go and close out the audience, what is your biggest advice to a young person like myself, who or someone in your age bracket who may feel like, okay, it's too late for me to start a business, I'm too old, or someone like in my peer group who has a business. I have a book publishing business, and then I also have this radio station. Sometimes entrepreneurs, like, we can be extremely hard on ourselves when things don't work out the way we anticipate, and sometimes we give ourselves up. We beat ourselves up and we give ourselves a hard time when things don't go well. And sometimes it can be very difficult for us to give ourselves a break sometimes. So what is your biggest advice to people who want to start a business, a young person who wants to start a business and they feel like, okay, I don't have the money, or I'm too young, or on the flip side, they is someone who may say, I'm too old, I've already spent an X amount of years in my career. There's no way I could do anything with this idea, this passion, this talent, this creativity. What is your advice for them?
Oh, we can talk an hour about this, Nelson. There's a lot of, it's like saying, what makes marriage work? That's a very long answer to that question. Well, it depends, right? What is the mood like? What's the day like? But as far as getting into and finding your success, Nelson, I think one of the most important things is you have to stay positive. It's a lonely, bitter world when you're trying to figure things out on your own, right? It's very easy to get negative and almost believe Because as an entrepreneurial mindset, it's very hard to get people on your same page. Most will not see the future the way you do. Most will see it in a normal way. It doesn't mean they don't like you, or they don't support you, or they don't understand you. They just don't view the world the way you do. They might not be as hopeful as you, but it doesn't make them into bad people, right? So sometimes we have this conception thinking, nobody wants to support me, nobody's on my page, they're not really there for me, which is going to be completely okay. I think accepting the reality of you might be alone in a lot of your goals and dreams and ambitions, that's an okay thing to do. So the positivity factor is like, what do you do to stay positive? To me, it was working out, right? Every time I went to the gym or went for a run, whatever, swim, it would reset myself. I get negative. I'm like, you know what? There's no use of me staying in the office, or there's no use of me trying to finish this argument. I'm going to go work out for 45 minutes to feel good about myself, that I can continue this later or tomorrow. Mentorship. What books are you reading, right? Who do you call? Like, who do you call in the morning? Like, what does your first conversation look like? Are you just calling to, suck somebody's blood? Like, give me, or sometimes do you have people that might depend on your positivity? Do you call to give? Do you meet with somebody to give? In my opinion, that relationship, right? So surrounding yourself with the right people, the right mentors, and people to steer you the right direction. Again, I always talk about steering the right direction, because we human beings are just easily addicted to the wrong things, easily, we want to, have instant gratification. We make a little bit more money, we spend it before we see it, right? So the right people. So, mentorship doesn't have to be somebody who mentors you all the time. It's the right person, right? The positive, the driven, the coachable, the one that actually makes you feel good about yourself, right? Sometimes we might not be so lucky with having family members that are that way, which is okay, which is completely okay. But it's your responsibility to find the people and surround yourself with the right relationships, because that is a make it or break it deal.
Yes, and it makes sense. You have to put yourself in a position to be open to, like you said, mentorship, and you also have to be in a position to open yourself up for disappointments and failures. It doesn't mean that you're a failure. It just means that sometimes you just have to take a step back and regroup and figure out what went wrong and how it happened and why it happened, so you won't do it anymore.
Right.
So that definitely makes sense. So where can people reach you if they have any questions about how to start a business, how to start an insurance company per se? So where can people reach you? Where can people find you if they have any more questions or more comments about it?
There's a way to contact me linked through my website. It's just Hayk, Hayk. T is my last name's initial, .org. So haykt.org. I'm on, social media. I'm not as involved as I should be. So Hayk_agency, HAYK_agency on Instagram. But it's pretty easy to find me if you just type my name as well on Google. It gives you a contact me link to my office as well. But other than that, just through my website, probably the best way to contact me. My book is available on Amazon. There's a link to contact me as well. Also, the link to go to my training guide that I have built. There's a video series on all the chapters from the book. And again, all of that is usually just done through just my website, which is haykt.org. Okay.
Well, thanks again for taking time out of your schedule to appear on my show. I will definitely be keeping in touch with you, and I'll definitely, I'm going to close out the audience, but I just wanted to let you know that I appreciate you for coming on and talking about, what it's like to be an entrepreneur and what it's like to pursue entrepreneurship and to be in this field and to be in it 24/7. So thanks again for your time.
Likewise. And thank you so much for having me on your show, Nelson. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll keep in touch.
Sounds good.
So that wraps up another edition of the Beauty in Us Radio right here on Awesome God Radio. I thank you all for tuning in. I hope you all enjoyed this broadcast. I hope you all enjoyed this conversation that I had with Mr. Hayk about entrepreneurship and what it means to be business-minded, successful, and what it means to work hard, sacrifice, have faith, and still give yourself a break every now and then. So next week on the Beauty in Us Radio, right here on Awesome God Radio, we are going to have Equity Officer Mr. Bill Joyner with us, William Joyner with us, Bill Joyner with us to talk about BPD. It's a very, very hot topic. So please, please, please don't come after me when we have this conversation. Mr. Joyner and I are going to have a conversation about what his role is as an equity officer for the Baltimore City Police Department. So we're going to talk about his role as an equity officer for the Baltimore City Police Department. He's also a UMBC grad, and he's also pursuing his studies, not just in social work. He majored in social work, but he's also pursuing his career in many other areas. So Equity Officer Mr. Bill Joyner will be joining us from the Baltimore City Police Department to talk a lot about what his role is as an equity officer. He's been in that role for a little over a year and a half now, so he'll be able to provide us with a lot of insight in terms of how we can build a bridge between the community and law enforcement. So again, this is going to be a very, very hot subject. So please, please, please don't come after me. These are all going to be neutral responses. I know it's a very, very heated subject because of the climate that we're in. So I encourage you all to listen and learn. This young man has a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge in this field. So I love you all. I appreciate you all. Please, again, feel free to subscribe to Awesome Guy Radio's YouTube channel, as well as all of the social media platforms that we're on: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, you named it, Twitch, you name it. And I will see you all next week. So make an appointment to meet me back here as we have a conversation about police brutality and how to build a bridge between the community and law enforcement with Mr. Bill Joyner, Equity Officer for the Baltimore City Police Department. This is Nelson E. Brown from the Beauty in Us Radio right here on Awesome Guy Radio. And I will see you all next week. And I hope you all enjoy your holiday season. And stay safe.